Good afternoon, everyone. I'm aware I'm between you and your next cup of coffee, so we'll try and make this as fun as possible. I'm Becky Sims. I'm the founder and CEO of Reflect Digital. We're a digital marketing agency. We're covering all areas of digital, but today I'm going to be talking to you about gamification. So, this might be one you might want to take a photo of. I'm going to be referring to quite a lot of stats today, and they all came out of a report that we did last summer. You can download this full report at reflectdigital.co.uk/antidote. Now, we're at a point in time where trust is at an absolute all-time low in marketing and messages that brands are putting out there. I could have picked so many headlines today, but the one I've gone with is from The Drum. This was last year. People's trust in brands faces the biggest dip since the 2008 financial crisis. We can add to that the rise in ad blockers. So let's just see a show of hands. Who in the room uses an ad blocker? It's quite a lot of you, and we're all marketers, and we all know how important marketing is, but we're all choosing that we don't want to see ads anymore. So we're up to 22% in the UK for ad blockers. So this is a problem for us. We spoke to 2,000 UK consumers, and that research confirmed this lack of trust. 58% of people said that the online ads and marketing have little or no influence on their buying behaviour. Now, we all know that actually there's a good chance that it is having some form of influence, subliminally, but actually people are trying not to be advertised to. Now, we do still have an opportunity with the young. So 53% of 16 to 24s and 47% of 25 to 34s do admit that online ads do have an influence on them. But the older you get, the more cynical you get. You've been there before, you've seen it before, you're no longer interested in ads. So consumers are becoming numb to our tactics, and for us that just means that we now need to find new ways to be in that journey, in that decision journey, the user journey that a customer goes through, and we need to create more touch points. And those touch points need to be all about building relationships, because we believe that if we build relationships with our customers, that's what's going to cut through apathy, and that is what will win eventually. So what do I actually mean by gamification? This is a real buzzword, isn't it? But it's actually, it's the borrowing of elements of gameplay and then putting them and applying them in a traditionally non-game context. And the idea that we would do this is so that we're creating the same levels of attention and the same levels of engagement in the human brain that we would have in a state of play. So we're trying to have a really good mindset for the customer at that point. Now, our research found that consumers are overwhelmingly open to this. Now, just to put this in context, that only 30% of the 2,000 people that we spoke to had actually experienced gamification before. We made sure that all 2,000 that answered understood what we meant by it, but only 30% had actually experienced it. So that means that actually there's a great opportunity here to capitalize on this, because many brands aren't doing this. But 93% of those people said that they thought it was engaging. And respondents also admitted that this actually influences their buying behaviour. This is good news, marketers. 60% of them said that they would be more likely to buy from a brand if they played a game that they enjoyed with that brand. And that statistic rose to 86% for those that had actually experienced gamification before. So these are great stats. People are saying if we build games, they're going to buy from us. And that's why we believe that gamification could be the antidote to UK consumer apathy. But why am I telling you this in a link building talk? That's probably the next question that's all on your minds. Because we believe that in a fortnight, you can build a ton of links, and we'll come on to the actual fortnight in a moment. I'm going to start with how do we get this right, because you've got to get the game right for it actually to be able to work. Firstly, the most important part is the type of game that you create. Now, the research that we did found that people like puzzle games and they like knowledge games. They're the most important types of game. So people want things that challenge their brain. Now, you might be sitting here and you might be from a brand where you're thinking, actually, games sound too fun for me. Games don't have to just be about fun. It can be about education as well. So we're working with a brand at the moment, and we're looking at whether we can create a game around road safety, for example, to build up awareness. So it doesn't always have to be fun, but it's just creating something that's interesting and different for the consumer. And games need to be part of an integrated digital strategy. So you can't just say, I want to create a game and that's it. By creating the game, I'm definitely going to build a load of links and all will be good. It needs to be part of something bigger. We need to be thinking about remarketing with it. We need to be thinking about the email side of it. So whether if we're collecting data, we can use emails at a later date to follow that journey on and to start to move them through the funnel. So many brands have thrown away money with games. I've seen it happen many a time, and it tends to be a product of either overselling, so actually someone's thought of this as a sales tool and it's really trying to sell a product, or it can just be the fact that they haven't thought about that integrated strategy and they've just got excited and created a game. So let's go through the do's. Now, because we're in a link building talk, I've put this one up front. It needs to be link worthy. So if you are creating a game and the whole point of it is that you want to generate links, then the first question you have to ask yourself is this link worthy? Will the types of websites that I want to gain links from be interested in this? And we'll come on into it in a minute, but we can look at research that we can do to help find that out first. But we also want to make sure that we've got multiple campaign goals. It's not just about the links. Gamification offers you so much more. So I alluded to it earlier. One of the first things it can offer you that's really important is data. Now, we're coming up to a year anniversary from that dreaded day, GDPR, when probably loads of us just took data and had to throw it down the pan. So this is a great way to look at how we can build our data up again. And this isn't a case of building a game where the first thing you do is you ask the user for their data. You need to think about a fair exchange for that data. So whether you have created a game that's longer than someone will have time to complete, maybe at the first time of playing it, therefore they might sign up to save their progress to come back later. Or maybe you've got a really amazing prize that they might win at the end of it, in which case, great, let's ask them to sign up and then they'll be in the prize draw. Or it might be that you create a series of games, and across those series of games, they're going to want to know when the next one comes out, therefore they're going to be willing to give you their data. So that's one thing, data. We then need to think what we do with that data, which we will come on to. But you could also think about what could you learn about your audience. So maybe you're a fashion brand. And if you're a fashion brand, you might want to know what kind of messaging is going to resonate with your audience. So actually, you could create a game. It might just be a quiz-style game. And you might have stuff in there that's maybe more about celebrities. There might be some celebrity-type questions, and then there might be some more kind of style-related questions. If I were to play that game, I'd have no clue on the celeb-type questions. I'm not interested in that. Therefore, straight away, you can move me into a bucket that says, actually, going forward, let's definitely not send her emails that lead with Holly Willoughby wore our outfit or something like that, because I'm not going to be interested and that won't turn the dial for me. So we can do that. We can look at what can we plan into our game that's going to help us learn more about our audience and use that. And we can also just think about how this can be part of a longer strategy and give longevity to your brand. At all times, you need to be considering your audience. So you might be sitting there thinking, we've got a huge audience, this could be great for everyone. Well, actually, no. What you need to do is really target it on a clear audience sector of your wider audience. So if you were an Amazon, you're not going to create a game for everyone. If you're trying to create something for everyone, the chances are it's going to be too broad, it's not going to be of as much interest, and it's not going to have such a clear targeting around it. And then around that, when you're thinking about who the audience is that you're creating it for, you need to be thinking about your link opportunities to be clear that you definitely have link opportunities that are relevant to your brand, to that audience, and to help you get the reach. Now you're going to start to think about sense checking this with journalists. So at this point, we're this far down the road and we have not started making our game yet. We're still thinking about it. So at the point that we've got an idea and we're thinking, right, actually, this could be really cool, we need to start talking to journalists. Now, you may have journalists that you already work with, which is great. You can speak to them. If you don't, then you need to start finding them. So you need to hit Twitter. Great resource for finding journalists. You also need to look on things like newstip.com. That's a great site for finding journalists. You can use that for free. And you can also look at things like BuzzSumo and just searching for relevant games out there and seeing who's covered them before. And then you need to find some journalists that will talk to you and tell them about your idea and see if it's something that they think they might cover and get their feedback and see if you can use that in your idea for your game. But then you also need to consider, is there a hook? Because chances are if it's literally just a game, they're not going to be interested in covering it. There needs to be a reason. So can we hook it onto an awareness week? Can we find a reason? Is there a product launch coming or something like that that makes sense? Or can we create a hook? Can we do a piece of research and we can say, we did this piece of research, we found out 60% of people said this, therefore we created a game to kind of satisfy and provide a solution to that. So really clear, you need to think that there's some kind of hook for it to work. You can also do competitor research. Really easy to do. Hit Google, search your competitors' names and put the word game next to it. That's a good way to start. Have any of them done games before? When you find that they have, you then start digging deeper. Can you find that they got coverage for those games? Can you find the social media activity around that game? How can we find out what they did and whether it worked or not? If you've got any contacts there, maybe you'll be able to ask them as well. So that's a good place to start, but also BuzzSumo, that's a good place to go and have a look and search to see if you can find games that competitors or similar businesses have done to find out what worked and what didn't, because we need to try and learn from others and see if we've got an idea that's going to work. Consider influencers. You're going to know if in your audience there's an influencer that would make a difference, and maybe reach out to them. First of all, you're going to want to start finding out what kind of costs there would be involved, but also run your idea by them. See if they've got ideas on it, because actually they could have an impact on what you do with that game and how you make sure that it definitely works for their audience and something that they're going to be really bought into. And then conduct research and tests. So definitely do not start building this game and spending loads of money until you've tested the idea out properly. So you'll have spoken to your journalists, you might have spoken to influencers, but now also speak to the people that you're targeting the game at. So if it's a quiz-style game or it's based on clues, you might be able to mock some up to put in front of them. Some games will be a bit harder to mock up beforehand, but we need to try and do something to make sure that, again, we're confident it's going to work. Think about motivation. Why are they going to play your game? Is it the prize? Is that what's really exciting? Is it just the glory? Are they going to be able to share it to social media? What's the reason? So there's got to be a reason for the user to want to get involved. And then think about achievements. If it's a long game, how can we keep them excited and interested? Can we congratulate them? Are there levels? Can they share something to social media? If we've got email integrated and they've left the game and they haven't completed it, can we try and draw them back with email at a later date? Just think about that. People like to feel good about themselves. So even if it's just a message on screen saying, you're doing really well, that's going to help make them want to do more. How are you going to track success? We all like tracking. How are we going to know this works? If links are the most important thing, then we know how we're going to check up on links. But can we build loads of stuff into it using Google Tag Manager? We always tag up mistakes and wrong answers because that can, one, be good fun and something to giggle about in the office. But two, that might also give you a PR story. There might be something fun there that you can actually say, this many people thought this was the right answer here, and it's something that you can potentially use. So think about everything that you can track and things that might be useful to you. Consider all devices. Good chance people are going to want to play a game on a mobile. Make sure it works really well on a mobile. And consider a series of games. Now, you might think I'm mad because I'm probably alluded to the fact that games aren't always the cheapest thing, but actually if you think about doing a series of games, you can spread that cost out. If you can make it that the biggest bulk of cost is then reusable, then actually by game 2 and game 3, you can put all your learnings from the first game into it and make sure that you're definitely getting the results you're looking for. You've got a longer reason to be having a conversation with that customer, and at all times we're just creating this really cool piece of engaging content that your customer loves and is going to remember you for. The don'ts. Definitely don't make it sales focused. That's the absolute number one. If it's too sales focused, people won't be interested. And I probably should have said at the motivation stage, if you're building in prizes, try not to make them too immediate, as in, I've played games before with brands where literally the prize is, you've got 10% off and you need to use it today. It then suddenly feels really inauthentic and you feel like, I've just been duped into playing this game because you're trying to make me buy something today. I thought I was having a fun experience with you. And it can rub people up the wrong way. Instead, if you've got a prize that's something that they've then got the rest of the year or they've got 6 months to redeem, it's just a bit nicer and doesn't feel as kind of false. Don't make it too complicated, so you've really got to get the right level there. There's an important thing in psychology around kind of friction theory. We want to create friction. We want to make people think, because that's going to make us more memorable. But if we make it too difficult, people are just going to get bored and they're going to leave. So we need to just get that balance right. And definitely don't data capture too early. I touched on that earlier. Getting that at the right point is really, really important. So the perfect fortnight, we're going to level up. We are now in the perfect fortnight. So you've come up with your game idea, you've built it, you've tested it, you know it's awesome, you've checked it with your audience, you know journalists are bought into it, everything is looking great, and we're 1 week to launch. So the week to launch, we're going to finalize our link opportunities. We're going to go back over that list we originally created, and we're going to be thinking about, are those people still working there? Let's check out that they're definitely still at those publications. We're probably going to go and do the same research we did before to see if there's any new games that have come out that different journalists have covered that might give us a chance to say, well, actually, let's add them onto the list. We want to have a really good list that we know we're ready to hit. 5 days till launch, you're going to start thinking about sending a sneak peek out at this point. Now, we've had really great success with doing this. So instead of a traditional press release, we're going to put a little media pack together, and we're giving them a sneak peek of what the game looks like. We may even give them a link where they can actually come in and have a little go at it, making it clear not to share it yet. And we're also going to start a social countdown, so we're starting to get our audience excited as well. But at this point, hopefully the journalists are getting bought in and they're loving your game even more. 3 days to launch, we're going to start to follow up with those contacts. I mean, there's a chance they've knocked on your door already, excited, and they want to be your exclusive, but it's not always as easy as that, so we know we have to keep trying. So at that point, we're going to follow up and try and see, are they interested? Did they like it? Is it something they're going to cover? 1 day to launch, we want to get that confirmed, agreed coverage for day 1. We did this with a campaign, which I'll show you at the end, and we managed to get Sport Bible agreed before we launched, which was a massive weight off our shoulders to know we had a big publication ready to launch on the same day that we were. And it also meant that we could get our ducks in a row and be ready to actually launch it and have everything that they needed to embed it, etc. Launch day, we're going to send a full press release out at this point. Game is out there, it's ready for everyone to see. If any of you have not spoken to journalists before, this is a guide that Joanna in our team, who's our PR and media manager, created. So reflectdigital.co.uk/journalist. This is a guide. She's an ex-journalist, so she knows what she's talking about. So she will give you some good tips there on how to make contact and what to put in that press release. And we're also going to start to really get social. So we want to be putting messages out on social. We want to be getting people excited, starting conversations. And we may even put some social ads up. The campaign I'll show you at the end, we only spent £150 on ads. So really minimal budget, but it just helped give it a little bit more of a push. 1 day post-launch, we're going back to those targets that have not responded. Hopefully we can be saying to them at this point, did you see that Sport Bible, for example, have covered it? We can start showing them the results. We can say how excited the audience have been. We can show them some of the reaction, and we can really try and hone this into getting them to want to cover it as well. 2 days post-launch, you might want to think about forums. Now, this is a funny thing to say in an SEO talk. We all stay away from forums normally, but depending on your type of game, it could be really relevant. So the game that I'll show you at the end is a football-related game, and forums were massive for us from a conversation point of view. Everyone was already there speaking about it. We weren't even needing to seed it, but we were able to kind of capitalize on those conversations. 3 days post-launch, you might want to do a follow-up press release. So if you've got all your tracking in the right place, we're able to go and look at some of those stats and see if we can use those in a press release to try and push it a little bit further. We, with our games, have looked at things like which countries are better at winning the game or completing the game. Our football game, actually, the Americans were better at, so that gave us a line to go out with because it was all mainly UK football clubs, but actually the Americans were best at it. So that gave us something that we could talk about to the press and got us more coverage. 4 days post-launch, think about local. So maybe it's local to the business that you're creating this for, whether you're an agency or you're the business yourself. Think about the local opportunity, especially if it's educational. There can be a really nice message there that this business has created this fantastic game and that there's a reason behind it. And local links can be really relevant depending on your business. 5 days post-launch, start thinking about challenging influencers. Now, we've done this before. We went out to people like Gary Lineker. We created a graphic with his face on it saying, come and play our game. That kind of thing just grabs their attention. It's a bit different. They do get so many tweets every single day, so it's not always going to work. But by having that kind of graphic and having planned it, you've got a bit more chance of it. Check your progress. Now, I'm really hoping 6 days in, you've already checked your progress at this point. But if you haven't, you really should be looking at it. Majestic SEO, that would be our tool of choice for looking back at backlinks to see what we've got coming in. Google Analytics will be looking at all the stats and the data and making sure that everything's working as we want it to be and seeing if there's any stories we can create there. And Google Alerts is going to really help us to make sure that we can pick up on any conversations happening about our game. And 7 days post-launch, pardon the pun, we're going to reflect, tweak, and repeat. The important thing about games is that they're not an overnight thing. You might have a good overnight success from it, but actually you've got time. Depending on when your prize draw ends, if that's quite important to the message, you might have a time limit. But if you don't have that, you've got time to just keep pushing this and working on this. So don't panic. As much as those 2 weeks can drive a huge amount of links, you've got a longevity piece here. So this was the game we created, Find 50 Clubs. You can go to it at our website, /Find50. I'm going to put it on screen, which means I might lose some of you now, so I will move off of it. But as a game, this is a clues-based game. So hidden in this scene are 50 football clubs. So for example, I'm going to use the laser. We've got here a swimming pool with black water in it. So that's Blackpool. If you know your towns and cities, you're going to be quite good at this. You don't need to be good at football. This is really tough, though. Some of these clues will take you time. And bearing in mind this was a one-page website, 15% of people spent over 40 minutes staring at this screen. They were so into this. We had wives tweeting us saying, my husband won't come to bed until he gets the last clue. The social media, I mean, someone said that they were putting it on their CV. They were so proud of it. It was literally the social media conversation. We could not have imagined how amazing it ended up being. And how did we reach it out? So I mentioned about a sneak peek. This was our example of a sneak peek that we sent out. So most of the scenes covered up. You've got the top of the scene available, and we're telling them they've got 9 football clubs to find. But we were speaking their language, which was really important. So these journalists love football. So the fact that we were able to go out to them and say, you've impressed the scouts, you've made the Find 50 football clubs trials, it's your time to impress. It was the kind of language that would get them excited. And when we were tweeting and when we were sending emails out, we were going with the headline, this is possibly more addictive than Football Manager. So again, speaking their language, making sure it was something they'd be interested in. We generated links from over 100 places in total, but these were some of our top links. And we were also award finalists at a couple of different awards for this. You can see the stats here. Bearing in mind this was a standing start and we had absolutely no following from a football perspective. We got over 100,000 visits within 2 months. We still get over 100 visits a day now. Over 10% of people gave us their data as well, so they were willing to sign up and hand over their data. And we reached over 170 different countries. But most importantly, there was over 100 links there. I've been Becky Sims. These are the links again. So /antidote if you want to get the research paper, /Brighton SEO if you would like my full slides, and /Find-50 if you want to play the game. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be hanging around if you've got any questions. Thank you.